Hi, Assalamualaikum. Today we are Group 4. We will present about the analysis of international trade of Japan in 2020 until 2024.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Shirin Aizah binti Muhammad Shahrin and my number matric is 297871 and I will be the first presenter of my group. Firstly, I will explain the Japan external trade statistic in the 2024. As you can see in the data, it shows that a positive development in Japan's export and imports in 2024. Based on the data, there was an increase in Japanese export, which increased by 2.8% compared to the previous year, which is in 2023. This has exceeded the market expectation of 2.3%. The growth is due to the high demand for cheap manufacturing equipment, especially from Taiwan. And it is also because of the yens have weakened and increased the value of exports. In addition, the flow of imports of goods into Japan has also increased by 1.8% year-on-year, reaching 9.78 trillion yen, although it is below market expectation of 2.6%. Overall, Japan's exports rose 2.8% year-on-year in December. The result has beaten the economist's expectation for a 2.3% increases. As a result, the trade balance came in at a surplus of 1,130.9 billion yen compared with a forecast deficit of 53 billion yen. Next, I will present the import and export trends of Japan 2020 to 2024. Firstly, the Japan import. The diagram above shows that the trend of Japan's import from 2015 to 2025. The diagram also shows a very significant upward trend, where there was a sharp increase after the end of 2020. This increases due to the pandemic period and the energy crisis. Moving on to 2022, the highest level reached was at the end of 2022. There was a slight decrease in import in 2023, and after that, Japan's imports remained high and stable, with an estimated 9,000 to 10,000 billion yen by 2025. Furthermore, Japan explained that their highest record of import over 2022, which amounted to 11,207.26 billion yen, and their lowest record in import was in 1963, which amounted to only 162.09 billion yen. In the trends of Japan export of the Japan country, as you can see in the graph shows, it shows that a continuous upward trend since 2020, with a slight decline during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, Japanese export peaked in late 2024 and then continued to increase in early 2025. Moreover, the annual surge shows that exports are getting stronger because it is in line with the global recovery and international demand for Japanese goods. Overall, Japan's exports increased to 9,847.81 trillion yen in March 2025, from 9,190.14 billion yen in February 2025. The highest records for Japanese exports was in December 2024, with a total of 906.71 billion yen in December 24. And the lowest record for Japanese exports was also in 1963, with only 105.08 billion yen. Finally, I will explain the key factors influencing the Japan's trade performance over these years. The main factors influencing Japan's trade performance from 2020 to 2024 are the COVID-19 pandemics, the demand for global semiconductors, the depreciation of the yen, rising energy prices, domestic industrial policy, as well as tourism collapse and recovery. During the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 to 2024, Japan is one of the countries significantly impacted disruption in the global supply chain and a decline in demand for goods, that leading to a sharp drop in Japan's exports and imports. Second, the demand for global semiconductors, which have boosted exports, especially to Asian countries and United States. Next, depreciation of the yen. In between 2022 to 2024, the value of the yen weakened, which made Japan's exports more competitive. But at the same time, it also leading to an increases in import costs, particularly in energy costs. Meanwhile, the rise in energy prices, as what happened in the Ukraine during that time, it has worsened the Japan's trade balance because of the cost of energy imports has increases. Move on to the domestic industrial policy. In the investment in green technology and advanced manufacturing, such as EV batteries, hydrogen cells, and renewable energy devices, it also has increased the export potential of Japanese products to the foreign countries. And last but not least, the tourism collapse and recovery. Because of the sharp decline during the pandemic during the COVID-19 pandemic, Japan's tourism sector has recovered in 2023. This has drastically increased the tourist arrivals and directly helped Japan to develop in their trade in the services sector. Overall, Japan's trade performance between 2020 until 2024 is strongly influenced by the global factors such as the pandemic, energy prices, geopolitics, as well as the domestic efforts in innovation and foreign trade policy. That is all from me. Now I will pass the presentation to the next presenter. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Alia Fatini binti Ismail and my metric number is 297673. Today, I will talk about Japan trade situation. During the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, Japan had a trade surplus. This happened because import dropped a lot due to low demand and shipping issues. But from 2021 to 2023, Japan had trade deficits. This was mainly because import costs went up, especially for energy like oil and natural gas, worsened by the Russia-Ukraine war. Also, the Japanese yen became weaker, going above 150 yen per US dollar in 2023. While this helped Japan sell export more cheaply overseas, it also made imports more expensive, making the trade deficit worse. In 2024, Japan trade situation improved. The yearly trade deficit went down a lot to 5.33 trillion yen, which is 5.89 trillion yen less than the year before. This was mostly thanks to strong imports, which hit record highs. In 2023, Japan exported around 107.9 trillion yen worth of goods. The main exports were cars, electronics, and machines. The US became Japan's biggest export market, overtaking China. Export to the US rose by 11% in 2023, while export to China dropped. Japan also imported less energy, helping to reduce the trade deficit. In short, Japan struggled from 2021 to 2023 with high import costs and a weak currency, but by 2024, export grew and import costs dropped, helping the economy recover after a few tough years.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Ashraf Rukunisa binti Abdul Ghaffar. My metric number is 297665. Today, I will explain about the major exporting product of Japan. As you may know, Japan is known as global leader in advanced manufacturing and high-quality technology, consistently at the forefront of technological innovation. In this context, the country's top exported product included machine, vehicle, and electrical equipment, manufactured items, and chemicals. Its products are some of the most advanced in the world, which beating out China, the US, and Germany. In addition, Japan mainly exports to the US, China, the European Union, South Korea, and Taiwan. These products reflect the strength of Japan's automotive and electronic sector, both of which are globally recognized for their precision engineering, innovation, and high quality. Next, Japan manufacturing and export industry are distributed across various cities, each specializing in distinct sectors based on the historical development, industrial infrastructure, and regional expertise. For instance, Tokyo serves as the main economic and financial center, which focuses on electronic information technology and advanced manufacturing, with major companies such as Sony and Canon based there. On the other hand, Osaka is a key industrial hub specializing in machinery, chemical, and consumer goods, and it homes companies like Panasonic and Sharp, Furthermore, Nagoya is widely recognized for its strong automotive aerospace industry. It hosts major manufacturers such as Toyota, Honda, which focus on production and export of automotive parts and aerospace components. Okay, next we move to the export trend of Japan in 2020 until 2024. In 2020, Japan export amount to 785.06 billion US dollar, reflecting a decline of 12.16% compared to 2019. This downturn was followed by the robust recovery in 2021 when export reached 912.55 billion US dollar, making up a 16.24% growth from 2020. In 2022, Japan export total 916.90 billion US dollar, reflecting a modest increase of 0.48% compared to 2021. Subsequently, in 2023, Japan total export reached for 737 billion US dollar, which made Japan the fourth largest exporter globally. This decrease marked a 19.6% reduction compared to the previous year, reflecting several global economic factors. Based on the United Nations Comtrade database on international trade, Japan's total export in 2024 were valued at 707.39 billion US dollar. This represents a further slight decline compared to 2023, indicating continued challenges in the global trade landscape. There are several factors behind the dominance of Japan's top exported product in international trade. Firstly, the engineering industry is a cornerstone of Japan's economy, playing a key role in producing high-quality machines, vehicles, and electronics that are globally recognized for their precision, reliability, and innovation. For example, Japan's automotive sector is home to leading automakers such as Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, which have pioneered hybrid and electrical vehicle technology. Furthermore, the world's first mass-product hybrid car is prioritized by Toyota, which leads to a contribution to a global shift toward greener and more sustainable mobility. As a result, Japan has the ability to meet global demand for eco-friendly vehicles. Secondly, Japan has a well-earned reputation as an international hub for research and development (R&D), owing to the country's investment into innovation and high-performance research center. For example, Panasonic spent around 0.35 billion USD on research and development in its 2023 fiscal year, approximately 3 billion USD in 2024. This strong focus on R&D ensured that Japan continued to lead in producing advanced and reliable goods, forcing the dominance of its export in international trade. Thirdly, Japan's reputation for quality and reliability significantly contribute to the high global demand for its product. This largely due to Japanese manufacturers' consistent adherence to strict quality control standards. For instance, the implementation of Japanese industrial standards ensures safety, efficiency, and quality across various sectors, including in electronics and construction. Moreover, Japan actively adopts international standards such as ISO to align with global best practice and maintain excellence in manufacturing processes. Furthermore, total quality management (TQM) is deeply embedded in Japan's business culture, emphasizing continuous improvement and shared responsibility among all employees. In conclusion, Japan dominates in exporting machines, vehicles, electronics, and other high-tech products stemmed for its world-class engineering capability, strong investment in research and development, and commitment to maintaining quality. These factors are collectively reinforce the country's global competitiveness and help sustain its role as a major player in international trade.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Aina Elena binti Abdul Aziz and my metric number is 297900. I would like to explain about the impact of global issues on trade. The Israel-Hamas conflict has raised concerns for Japan, which relies heavily on Middle Eastern oil and gas. This conflict could disrupt Japan's energy security and economic stability. As a U.S. ally, Japan has taken a conscious diplomatic stance, calling for reduced civilian casualties and balanced relations in the region. Next, the conflict between China and Taiwan also affects Japan's trade, as China is one of its key economic partners. The tension disrupts supply chains, especially in manufacturing. Trade restrictions may impact major industries like technology and manufacturing, which rely heavily on imports from China and Taiwan. As a result, Japan needs a more balanced supply chain strategy that is less dependent on a single country. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic significantly disrupted global supply chains, including in Japan. Factory shutdowns, reduced foreign investment, and export delays due to travel and logistic restrictions caused major economic strain. Japan also faced its worst full-time labor shortage since the pandemic began. In response, the country diversified its export markets, increased automation, and expanded technology use to support economic recovery. And the last one, the global economic downturn has significantly impacted Japan's international trade by reducing the demand of key exports such as automobile, machinery, and electronics when the global economic weakens. This decrease in demand places pressure on domestic and economic growth and lowers national export earnings. Next is example of incident that affected export, import, or trade policies. First, the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake and Fukushima nuclear disaster had a major impact on Japan's economy. Fears of another tsunami still worry citizens. The disaster disrupted production of key exports like electronics and automobile, forcing major companies such as Toyota and Sony to halt operations. Japan's export sharp declined in the following months. The tsunami also triggered the worst nuclear crisis since Chernobyl, increasing Japan's reliance on fossil fuel imports like LNG and widening in trade deficit. Next, the COVID-19 pandemic had significant impact on Japan's economy and international trade. The country experienced an economic contraction of 7.8% in the second quarter following the outbreak, with global demand lead to a 3% drop in Japan's export as a share of national GDP, especially in key sectors like machinery and automobiles. Supply chains were also disrupted, particularly in the delivery of critical components such as semiconductors and electronic parts from China and Southeast Asia. In response, Japan diversified its trading partners and increased domestic production of essential goods to reduce dependence on any single country. And the last one is the Russia-Ukraine war had a significant impact on Japan, especially in terms of energy supply. In response, Japan imposed economic sanctions on Russia, including visa bans, asset freezes, and restrictions on exports, imports, and financial operations. This action disrupted Japan's LNG imports from Russia, affecting its energy security. As a result, Japan accelerated its transition to renewable energy, signed new energy agreements with the United States and Australia, strengthened ties with Middle Eastern countries, and reviewed its national energy security policy.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nufari Saliana binti Muhammad Fairuz Zalidi. My number matric is 297941. Today I will explain about the Japan response strategy to mitigate global trade impacts. The number one is respond to the Israel-Palestine conflict, energy security strategy. Heavy reliance on Middle Eastern oil and gas raised energy security concerns. In 2023, conflict between Israel and Hamas threatened oil supply stability, and the government action is Foreign Minister Kamikawa Yoko meet with regional leaders, which is Egypt, to promote the escalation and humanitarian aid and maintain the neutral diplomacy to safeguard energy ties. The objective is avoid energy supply disruption and stabilize industrial production. And the number two is respond to China-Taiwan tensions, supply chain diversification. Rising tension threatened import of semiconductors of components, and the government action is partner with TSMC to build a semiconductor plant in Kumamoto, and the pledge is 4.9 billion in subsidies to expand domestic chip production in 2024. And the objective is localized high-tech manufacturing and reduce dependence on Taiwan and China. Number three is respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, trade and technological resilience, which is the trade contracted due to global lockdowns and supply chain breakdowns. The government action is launch supply chain resilience initiative, which is SCRI, with Australia and India in 2021, and promote diversification of supply sources in the Indo-Pacific, and invest in domestic automation and advanced technologies. The objective is build a robust trade system and prevent future disruption. And the number four is respond to the Russia-Ukraine war, energy policy reform, which is sanction on Russia limited access to LNG and oil. The government action is participate in G7 sanction and price cap cap on Russian oil. And this is increased renewable energy investment and form new LNG partnership with US and Australia. The objective is enhance energy independence and support green energy transition. For the recommendation to protect Japan's international trade, the number one is strengthen energy security, which is Japan imports 90% of its energy from politically sensitive regions, which is Middle East and Russia. Geopolitical tension which is Israel, Hamas, and Russia and Ukraine threaten energy supply and industrial output. And the action point is diversify energy sources and supplier, which is US and Australia. And this is invest in renewable energy, which is wind, solar, and hydrogen. This modernize nuclear infrastructure for stable domestic energy. And the number two is build a resilient, diverse and supply chain, which is COVID-19 and China-Taiwan tension disrupted import of key components and heavy reliance on China and Taiwan for semiconductors and raw materials. And the action point is expand supply networks to Vietnam, India, and Indonesia. This is to promote domestic production of essential goods and reduce dependence on single countries. The number three is enhance economic flexibility and trade diversification, which is pandemic led to decreased global demand for Japanese export and its over reliance on major markets like China and US. And the action point is deepen participation in RCEP and CPTPP trade agreements and empower SMEs with export incentive and digital tools. And this is diversified trade to emerging markets.
In conclusion, Japan's international trade from 2020 to 2024 shows how the country has managed to stay resilient and adapt to a changing global economy. Even with major obstacles like the COVID-19 pandemic, shortage in semiconductors, international tensions, and energy issues, Japan has been gradually bouncing back and even strengthening its trade balance. This has been helped by diversifying what it exports and investing more in high-tech industries like electronics, cars, and advanced manufacturing. The yen's low value made Japanese export more competitive abroad, while smart domestic policies and innovation keep Japanese products in demand worldwide. Japan's experience teaches us the importance of building strong supply chains, maintaining good diplomatic ties, and focusing on sustainable industries that are future-ready. Looking ahead, Japan's success in dealing with worldwide uncertainties will depend on its continued focus on innovation, spreading out its trade partners, and working closely with other countries.